Hello, my good friends. Welcome to the show. Jack Chow hosting the East-West Show with G&E TV. I believe that you all like this program because not only because of me, because of the fact that it keeps bringing you information about where and what are needed, so to better equip our audiences with the knowledge necessary in terms of dealing with the day-to-day life. So that being said, we try to pack together information also this time to extend to include some financial areas or field of those areas, which is area of none of my expertise to you. And in order to do that, I have invited my good friend, Dr. Lingyun Gu of Turbo Finance Group.
Yes.
To come here to talk about. So first, I would like to extend my invitation, friendly, and you're warmly welcome to this show.
Thank you very much for having me here.
All right, good. I know that you've been traveling China and back to East for the past month, right?
And pretty much like the rest of the world, and pretty much coast to coast.
Oh.
Sometime like I just travel back from China, and I only like stay home probably for one day, and I have to book a ticket and fly from Los Angeles to East Coast again, and spend another 5 or 6 hours on the plane. Like traveling is already one important part of my life. But I'm pretty enjoying it.
You
so
must have built up lots of air mileages.
Oh yes, a lot. I think probably like this year I have been already flying more than 60,000 miles.
Oh wow.
Yes, but that's also like the reason.
There's a lot of air tickets.
Oh yes.
There's a lot of free tickets.
Yes, but that's also the reason I told my friend I am hijacked by United Airlines because I have already been flying with them so much.
I see.
And I do not have the luxury to fly with any other airlines because I'm already spoiled by United. So every time I can just squeeze into the first class and checking my luggage and do a lot of
So you're a first class flyer by the amount of air mileages built up, right?
Yes, but some of my friends, they fly much, much more than I do.
I see.
And they have been traveling between
With
US
all
and
those
China.
flying back and forth, though, what are the activities? I know nothing about this whole area as a word starting with an F.
Yes.
Yeah.
Recently, financial has been a very hot topic again. And why I say again, that is because after the financial crisis or the Great Depression, starting from 2008, a lot of people, including fresh new graduates, they try to stay away from financial industry. And Wall Street is not as hot as it was 5 years ago. But now you can see the trend has been changed. If you look at the bonus given by the hedge funds, given by investment banks, and given by even commercial banks, it has been increased a lot year by year. And also look at the compensation package compared to we call the flag. What I mean flag is called Facebook, F, LinkedIn, L, and Amazon, A, and G, Google. We call the flag. And those are internet giants, and they offer very good compensation package and they try to compete the human minds with Wall Street. But recently, and you can see these two totally different industries have been pretty much keeping a very good balancing point. It's not like several years ago. A lot of great talented people, they join financial, or they join the internet industry rather than financial.
So your personal involvement by flying back and forth, what are those for?
Well, because like I mentioned, currently finance is getting much hotter, but in which area? Small sub-segments, which area is getting hotter? And we call the internet finance.
Oh, I see.
And internet finance, why it's booming right now? That is because if we look back, maybe 14 years or maybe 20 years, let's say back to the middle 1990s, and that's the first blooming of the first version of internet. And at that time, people talking about the physical meaning of internet, which means if I can connect my computer with any other people's computer, and we call that is internet. hook up the machines with other machines. That's what we call the first generation of internet.
That was early, the turn of the century.
Exactly, that's right. And it's around like 2000, and everyone know the internet bubble burst. And that's for the first generation of internet. And then people always thinking about, is there any way we can come up with a second wave, and we call it the second generation of internet, and now we found it. And the key word is big data. And the big data currently is so hot, and the word is not that new. It was introduced by New York Times the beginning of 2012. And the people say, we have data for a really long time, but we really do not have a large scale data to do a lot of things. And then now we already have the solid foundation to do a lot of things on top of big data. And why people say big data? There are a bunch of interesting definitions. It's not just because we have a lot of data, we say it's big data. That is because from the very beginning, in terms of the storage, it's completely changed. Why do I say this? If we look back maybe 20 years, again, back to the middle 1990s, what is the best way for us to store all the information? For example, if you want to file a tax return to IRS, what did you do? And pretty much you fill in the 1099 or the 1040 different forms by hand. And then you mail all those forms to IRS. And what IRS did, and they opened manually each of the envelope and manually put all information. Exactly.
Numbers,
and there is no way for them to transfer all this paperwork into the digitalized world. So, but now, after 20 years, the digitalized is possible. Which means if you want to look back the historical data, you don't have to go to your cubic, open your file cabinet, and you can easily just like open your computer and try to get into access to the database, and it's easy for you to grab maybe the past 50 or even 100 years data. So that's the first thing we say makes big data possible, and that is for the storage, it's possible. And the second way is we call it the retrieval. And now, yes, we have the data, but because the data is so large, is there any way we can properly retrieve and get all this data? It's very important. Previously, we have computer, but probably we only have 512 megabytes the memory, and it's a lot, I guarantee you, 20 years ago. But now people talking about the 16 gigabytes, talk about maybe even 24 gigabytes memory. It's even larger than the hard disk 20 years ago. But it's still not good enough, because when you try to load all this data into memory, it's almost impossible. Then people or company like Google and Facebook, they come up with the new technology, like we call the Hadoop, we call the MapReduce. And all this new framework makes the information retrieval and even possible. So there are a lot of things make the big data possible.
I see. So in other words, the word big data is not referring to the size of the hardware.
That's right.
It refers about the fact of the software.
Exactly. It's the new. It's the new definition, or it's the new philosophy. How do you do the things with data? And previously, a lot of companies, they say, oh, we are big data because our data is large enough. I told them, no, if you continue to do this, pretty much like you go back to 14 years ago, and I always share the same joke with a lot of my friends. Around the 2000, I see a food delivery company, purely delivery food. But, and they all of a sudden, they got a good idea. They say, why don't we call as XYZ internet food delivery company? They don't change anything, and they still use the traditional truck to deliver the frozen food. They only just put internet in front of the food delivery company, and they got public. And they actually attract a lot of investors' money just because they put the internet in front of their company's name. And then now it's the same thing. Yes, everyone try to put the big data in front of their company, try to attract investors' money, and try to be the center of the stage. But that's not the way to play the game.
In other words, your involvement, I'm starting to understand a little bit, is that you see those people or those groups or whoever tends to be the one that leads the trend.
Yes.
Then you'll convince the investors to put money in their basket.
Right.
To wait for the money grow.
Right, that's right.
I
But I
see.
can give you a solid example what I'm doing, and why I claim we are really doing big data stuff is because we perfectly combine internet and finance together. Let me give you one example. Everyone know each individual residing in US, they have a score called FICO score, and the FICO score is the backbone of 3 major credit bureaus.
Which is your credit
algorithms.
score. Yeah.
Exactly, the credit scores from Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian. And why do we have the FICO score? That is because each individual financial institution, they continuously collect the financial information from us. Have you defaulted before? And how many credit cards do you have? What is the longest credit card do you have? And how many balance you carry for each month, something like that, right? But that's all your financial data. It's very limited. Like for example, let's say if for a new international students, right? We call it FOB, fresh off the boat, right? And compared to ABC, American Born Chinese.
Fresh
And
off
for
the boat,
for FOB, and they are great students. They have a lot of money, no matter from their parents or from their own pocket. They have a lot of money, and they don't have a lot of financial difficulties at all. But if you look at the traditional way, the FICO way, to look at their credibility, it's very difficult because they are a white paper in United States, no track record at all. How do we evaluate this type of person's credit score?
Fresh off the boat.
Exactly, and that's one type of person we actually currently come up with a way to do the evaluation.
Okay. All right, good.
Yes.
Very good. Those are information that I never thought that we should have. As a matter of fact, it is when you started listening to it, you get interested. So I am starting to feel interested in this whole area. Let's get back after this short break, please.